Hey guys, Madman back here with another Warframe video. Today we're going to be talking about the new update, the Duvari Paradox, depending on how you look at how this name is pronounced. The Duvari Paradox dropped April 26th. This is the update that so many people were looking forward to. So many people wanted this. And this was one of those updates that you had a lot of hope for. And today we're going to dive into everything good, bad, and or indifferent about the Duvari Paradox. So if you're looking for information on the new update and or if you should come back, be sure to stick around throughout the video. First off, let's look at the opening quest line in these schematics of the Duvari Paradox. The Paradox is almost like a roguelike gameplay mode within Warframe that is very unique for the way that Warframe presents itself. So it's a weird thing how it works, because the roguelike element plays into the quest line, which is like a weird entry point for new players while still being there for returning players. There was a lot that they tried to stuff into this update. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of lay out what some of the new features were. We're going to talk about the good and then the bad, and then some final thoughts at the end of the video. First off, the quest line in and of itself is actually super interesting, especially if you're kind of locked into the Warframe lore like I am. The quest and the campaign is super interesting, and I think that it's one of the more intricately developed quests that Warframe has in terms of cinematic quests. Now, some people might be a little upset with that because there are other quests in this game that are really good, but I do think that the Duvari Paradox really sets itself apart, lining up the next mainline update and the next mainline story for Warframe post New War. Once you complete the campaign itself, the update comes with 3 game modes. You have the Circuit, the Paradox, and the Lone Story. Let's talk about the one in the middle, the Duvari experience first. It is your version of a full-fledged open world, kind of, that they've built in the past, similar to, say, a Cetus or a Fortuna. Now, one of the caveats here is you're running a 6-step bounty where you are basically trying to earn various things and play your way through a couple of stories that develop based on the rotation or the mood of the main character. And those 6-step bounties, once you're finished, you can go through and kind of run around and look for various things to gather, like resources or enemies to farm or intrinsics, which are a big deal with this game update. And after every single bounty, you get a decree which acts as a modifier to that particular run. That's one of the more that's the mode that I had the most problem with. We'll get into that a little bit later, but that's the mode I had the most problem with. The next one we want to talk about is the Lone Story option, which is effectively the same version of the bounties, but it tells that story and like completely eliminates the side stuff. So you don't run around and gather resources or just farm other things. It is literally just, hey, here's the story, play these bounties, go to the exit, repeat. Now, the last mode, and probably easily my favorite mode, is the Circuit mode. The Circuit mode is an endless game mode where you pick a Warframe and you play through an endless set of bounties, and for every bounty you complete, you get a decree and intrinsics as well as some resources. There's also reward paths, like the Steel Path reward for this week gives you an Incarnate weapon, and you get to pick 2 of them, one at each tier. That's for the Steel Path version. For the regular version, you can pick a Warframe path that will give you 10 tiers of rewards and you end up getting all 3 pieces of a frame as well as the blueprint for that frame. So the circuit mode is definitely where I feel this new update shines the most, because it is legitimately built like a roguelike mode. So when you start, you will be selecting a Warframe, a primary weapon, secondary weapon, and a melee weapon before jumping in at the beginning of the run. That's kind of how every one of those modes work. You pick a frame, your 3 weapons, and then go. Now, the caveat to that is if you don't own the frame, then DE has provided you with the frame that's already leveled, as well as a basic modding configuration for that particular frame and or weapon. So if you don't own a weapon or own a frame, you can still play with it with a basic configuration. If you already own the frame, you can level it this way, and we'll get into that a little more later, but you'll also be able to have the build that you prefer on that frame. So that's something to be aware of. If you say you own a Trinity frame and you go in, the Trinity you set up will allow you to run with that Trinity versus me, I don't own Trinity, so they gave me the basic D loadout. That's a really unique spin on how this is done as well. So I think that's kind of a unique way to do it. So let's talk a little bit about positives and negatives about this update. First off, I think the system is very well done at its core. I think it's very well designed. I think they've put themselves in a good position to build off of this particular story vehicle as well as this gameplay element. And as I stated earlier, I think the circuit is really where the roguelike elements of this mode shine. It also offers up one of the more unique spins on Warframe, and is probably the most enjoyable I've had with a new update in the 6 to 10 hours I've put into it, including the campaign. I did a little more before we recorded today, so I think realistically the fact that you can go in and play through this roguelike element adds a lot to not only this mode, but to Warframe in general. Speaking of the campaign, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but they did a lot for this update. And this story, I think, is just the first step in the right direction of the next mainline story that they're going to be telling. And I think that the circuit and the lone story section really offer up a unique way for Warframe to tell their stories. Animations don't seem super difficult on this level. I could be very wrong, and if somebody in the comments that is a developer wants to tell me I'm a jackass, by all means. But the animation looks relatively simple, so I could definitely see them using the lone story mode specifically to tell a seasonal story similar to how other live service games like Destiny and or the upcoming Diablo 4 are looking to tell seasonal stories. I think this is something that Warframe has really kind of been lacking. And we touched on that in a short at some point, how I feel their battle pass and seasonal quote unquote content needs a little bit of tweaking. But I think that this is definitely one of those vehicles that could really push and propel that forward. A real quick tidbit on the leveling system. I talked about it a little bit ago. When you have a frame or a weapon, this definitely seems like one of the more efficient ways to level things up. Now, me personally, I was running Helene on Saturn for a long time, trying to level up my frames. But this one definitely seems to be a more efficient leveling system. For context, I took Varuna through 6 or 7 steps of a bounty, and I went from level 0 to level 12, and it was like 20 minutes. So, and that's no resources, no extra XP boost or anything like that. So that's not bad. I think it's a pretty decent jump, especially when I'm already halfway there in 20 minutes. So some people may tell me I'm wrong, and if I am, I am. But to me, just what I saw, I feel like that is a good balance and a good integration of a higher leveling system and allowing you to level stuff up without having to quote unquote repeat the same mission like Helene over and over again. All your positives are right there. Positives, boom, great, woohoo. But there are some negatives. So let's talk about those. First off, the campaign is interesting enough, but there are some really weird glitches in that campaign. In fact, I was streaming the campaign the day that it launched on Wednesday, and I thought one of the more interesting glitches to me in the campaign, and I put it in a short, and I will have a link to that in the bottom once it goes live. This video is going to drop before that short drops, but I'm going to put that link to this in the description. It's great. Like, I'll probably just put that link in there so you guys can check it out. That glitch is great, but be aware, if you've not played through the campaign, there may be a mild amount of spoiler, but yes, that it was an interesting glitch. The glitches aren't just limited to the campaign, though. I was very sad to find out that the Duvari experience part of the world had some very significant glitches. Case in point, I ran 5 circuits on the day that it launched. 5 or 6. I was only able to complete 3 of them. That one I do know for sure. It was either because of glitches and or disconnections. I get it. I get this is a big update. I get there's a lot of things. And I'll cut DE a little slack because this is by far the biggest update they have ever rolled out in terms of gameplay and content. But still, you have to realize that a company like DE should have quality assurance testers that are able to kind of catch and squash at least a few of these bugs that shouldn't exist. I will say that the other game modes did appear to work correctly. Matchmaking was done well because of the newness of the content, so I'm not really shocked there. No real weird loading spikes between the two, and even when you go in between the worlds, there's definitely no real hesitation. But the biggest problem the biggest con, if there is a con, is the glitches. And I think that's literally just the con for every Warframe update, and that's a problem. It really is. The only other drawback to me, as far as how this mode is laid out, is it does appear there are only 3 to 4 mission types that you have while running Circuit or Lone Story or any of that stuff. And those appear to be Extermination, Excavation, Void Flood, and Survival. Now, I have ran a few of these and I've not seen anything other than those 4. I would like to hope that we're going to get other various modes added in that would add a unique spin on the mode and keep the replayability high. Another thing I'd like to see them do is add modifiers to the enemies. I think those are 2 things that would really just ratchet up the replayability of this mode, especially when you have a thing like Circuit that rewards you on tier paths every single week. Now, one last thing before we jump into the end part of this video. I started playing Saturday morning, and it does appear a lot of those bugs that I was running into have been somewhat patched after 3 hotfixes, which is good. We're only talking less than 4 days post-launch, so that's good. One thing I will say is they took the Kaith racing out of the main campaign and side quest for now. I don't know how long it'll be before they get that added back in, and I don't remember seeing specifically why they took it out, but apparently they did take it out. This update puts the game in an interesting place both stylistically and from a story perspective. And it does a lot, and I do mean a lot, of heavy lifting that sets it up for a number of improvements for the coming year. I think Warframe going into the TennoCon later this year in August has got to still find itself, especially with the Soulframe team or the veteran team of Warframe kind of stepping to the side to develop Soulframe. And I think that so far everything is working well. I think they are going down the right path. I think they're starting to find their footing, and it'll be interesting to see over the next year to 2 years where we find ourselves with the new creative director in Rebecca and or some of the new management team and design team that is a part of Warframe. Last thing I want to touch on here, yesterday when they did do DevStream 170, which was a follow-up to Duvari, and it does appear, just some of the side notes here, they're looking to put in some new dex modes and potentially some new mini bosses. Right now you do have one mini boss, which is the worm. Both of those things are added bonuses, and anytime you can add new stuff to an already existing content patch, I think definitely adds a positive to the game. Overall, if you've been away from Warframe for a while, I think that the Duvari update is one that can bring people back in and give them something to work on while sinking their teeth into this new story, sinking their teeth into getting new frames, sinking their teeth into leveling frames that they may already possess, and just kind of overall playing through the mode. I think it's definitely one of those updates that could bring people back for an extended period of time. And I, for one, am excited. I'm excited to see where we go next with this new Paradox and this new system. I want to know if you've played through the campaign, what you thought of the campaign, or if you've played through any of the new update. What are your guys' thoughts on the new update? Drop those in the comments below. Also, be sure to check us out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over on Twitch. We are live playing Warframe, Destiny, variety games. Last night we did a little bit of NHL. We'll probably be doing a lot of Diablo 4 when it drops. All those things are there. Last but not least, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the content, we are real close to 300, and I'm hoping to break that soon. So thank you guys very much. And until the next time that you take a trip through the Origin system, be sure, I don't really have an ending here because the Paradox screwed me up. So I'll just say board your landing craft, hop into the Origin system, and go hunt down some bad guys, Tinno.